One.
Hi everybody, this is Margarita and I'll be presenting the implementation meeting number 3 for group number 3, which includes myself, Erica, and Francis. So we met this week for about 90 minutes. At first, we tried using Google Video Hangouts like we have been doing every week, but we had a lot of trouble getting all members with video and sound. Every time we tried to connect, we would only have 2 people with video, 1 person with only sound, or 2 people with sound, and only 1 person with video. So then we tried troubleshooting and we tried a combination of speakers and Google Hangouts, but we were getting then too much noise feedback. So after troubleshooting for about 30-40 minutes, we ended up having to do a 3-way call in conjunction with Google Slides, Kami PDF Reader, to discuss our chosen article, and then we used Google Drive and a Google Doc to look at student work together. And then just to summarize again our classroom context, I am my group's practicing teacher, or we're focusing on my students, and I work at a public middle school with a mixed grade Spanish 1A class, 6th and 7th grade. And for now, we're focusing on my second period with a total of 28 students and 7 students with 504s and IEPs. So for our text protocol this week, we decided to try out the text-based seminar. Last week, we tried the 4A's protocol, and though we really liked it, we wanted to kind of expand and try all of the protocols that Venable's book lists just to see what they were like. So to begin with, we summarized the text-based seminar steps and made sure we were clear on what we were going to do before we jumped into the text. We had all also previously annotated the article for this week on Kami PDF, so we all had our annotations, questions, and comments ready to discuss. So the text for this week that we looked at was a framework for supporting students with learning disabilities in Spanish courses. This text really focused on how in the past a lot of students with learning disabilities have been pulled out of world language classes or discouraged from taking them because they think they won't be successful in those kinds of classes. And so this article kind of walked through some of the approaches and strategies that teachers can implement to help students with learning disabilities succeed, and that, like, this article focused on specifically Spanish classes or even any world language class. The article started with just general accommodations and then moved on to more specific strategies. The framing question we used to look at this video was, what kinds of strategies can teachers utilize to close learning gaps between general education students and students with learning disabilities? And are these strategies effective enough? So some of the agreements and notes that we came out of from our text-based seminar were that we all kind of had the common frustration that schools treat world language or foreign language as an elective or an extra. So a lot of times it is the first class that students get pulled out of when they need help. But the article did say that taking a world language can actually help the processing and just overall critical skills, critical thinking skills of students. We did like some of the strategies that the article suggested. For example, it discussed creating visual vocabulary cards for students. Francis shared with us a recommendation to have students who are struggling with their writing into a study group that would target developing that skill. So just a further way to differentiate. Two of us questioned why there wasn't more research on a problem that has been documented according to the article since the 80s. So a lot of the research that the article was citing and quoting was a lot older. Two of the strategies highlighted in the article were similar Two of the strategies that we also liked were very similar to the strategies we had in our data action plan. For example, implementing exit cards before a formal formative and having a word wall for students to refer back to. The article mentioned having a dedicated space for certain skills and frequent repetition of skills that needs to be learned. And I came away with wanting to try one of the strategies in the article, which was giving students information in advance and distributing copies of materials prior to explicitly instructing or previewing, describing, maybe an upcoming lesson that I know ahead of time to give students extra time to absorb content and kind of just mentally organize and frame the information that they're going to be receiving. For looking at student work, this week we used the tuning protocol. So again, we started with going through the general steps and making sure everyone was clear on the process before we began. We used Google Drive to look at a 24-point writing formative to assess students' knowledge of days, months, numbers, and a Spanish date format. This came after Erica and I had identified writing as one of the big weaknesses of students with learning disabilities in my second period. We talked in depth about the new grading scale that I implemented this week, which was changed from my last writing assessment. So last week, Erica and I discussed what a improved grading scale would look like that focused less on just the spelling points and focused more on the knowledge and content that students were demonstrating. So we discussed the new grading scale and how it affected student grades. Some of the warn feedback that we came out of the tuning protocol was that the grading scale focused on the knowledge that students were demonstrating and not just the finer details like spelling. It also emphasized the communicative proficiency and not just how well they could remember their accents and how to spell the numbers. We liked that the new grading scale did not double penalize students for making the same mistakes throughout. So if they forgot a phrase off of every single sentence, and it highlighted the fact that all student work that we looked at was comprehensible and all of them demonstrated an understanding of the vocabulary and language structure. So with this new grading scale feedback, we could kind of focus more on that and not how many points they lost because they didn't know how to spell the number 20, even though they were communicating it clearly. Some of the cool feedback that we noticed was that the feedback given to students was not always equal. So some students had more specific feedback than others, and some students had more feedback in general than other students. In looking ahead, we want to look at considering applying this new grading scale to all assessments. And for myself, starting a discussion with my PLC members on what we're really assessing, what we're really looking for. And as Erica said, looking at our overall philosophy of what defines student success. If our new grading scale is kept, how will we then differentiate student strengths and weaknesses, and how will that clearly be communicated to them, future teachers, beyond just what they receive on an assessment? Some of the strengths we thought for this meeting were we were really flexible with each other, resourceful when we had all of our technology problems, and with the addition of a new group member. So we were trying out different strategies, and despite, having different backgrounds, teaching different age levels and subjects, our educational philosophies were very similar to each other. So we had a really open and kind of natural discussion. We really liked using Kame PDF as a tool to collaborate together on a single document, and we had all prepared ahead of time. Some of the weaknesses were starting our meeting late, trouble communicating, trouble with technology, and catching up new members, but we're sure that in the future, things will go a lot smoother, and we're looking forward to it.